I didn't plan to stay that late. I never do. But the night stretched longer than it should have, like the silence between people who aren't sure if they've already crossed a line. Mara's roommate, the Mara I was helping move into her new apartment, had gone to bed hours ago. The boxes were still half open, the lamp buzzed faintly, and the air smelled of old paint and vanilla-scented candles. I was supposed to leave after fixing the shelf, but then she brought out 2 mugs of coffee and said, "You'll never get any sleep after this." She smiled when she said it. That soft, lopsided smile that looked like it had forgotten how to be careless. Mara was older, not just in years, but in how she carried herself. She had that quiet steadiness that makes everyone else feel too loud, too unsure. When she spoke, her voice didn't rise. It settled, calm, low, like a song you didn't realize you missed until it stopped. I sat on the floor, tightening a screw, pretending not to notice how her bare feet crossed near me, how the hem of her robe brushed the edge of the couch. She wasn't trying to be anything. That was the problem. She didn't have to. "Your hands shake when you're focused," she said quietly, watching me. I looked up. Maybe it's the coffee. Her eyes held mine for a second longer than necessary. Dark, patient, unreadable. She looked away first, but I felt that pause linger somewhere behind my ribs. When I finished, she moved closer, kneeling beside me to test the shelf. "You're good with your hands," she murmured, almost absent-mindedly, but the words landed wrong, or maybe right, in the small room between us. The silence stretched again. I wanted to speak, to joke, to break it, but my throat tightened. I only nodded, the kind of gesture that means nothing and too much at once. Her roommate shifted in the other room, the soft sound of a turning body on the mattress. Mara exhaled. "She sleeps light," she said, glancing at the hallway. Then, almost teasingly, "We don't have to." It was the tone, not the words. The way her voice softened at the end, not suggestive, more like testing the air, testing me. I froze, unsure what to say. My pulse felt too loud. The air felt too still. Then she laughed, quiet, genuine. "I meant the talking," she said, noticing my expression. "We don't have to keep talking if you're tired." But she didn't move away. Her shoulder brushed mine as she reached for her mug, fingers grazing the back of my hand. A quick touch, almost accidental, yet something in me memorized it before I even understood why. We sat like that for a while, 2 people pretending to rest, pretending the world outside the apartment wasn't tilting slightly in a new direction. She asked about my studies, my plans, what I wanted out of all this. All this meaning life, not the night. I told her bits and pieces. She listened, really listened, eyes tracing my face as if learning something she wasn't supposed to. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Her voice softened again. "You're easy to be around," she said. "That's rare." I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled, awkward and small. She smiled back, that same careful curve that made me wonder what she was protecting. I left, but the warmth of her apartment stayed with me, the quiet hum of that half-finished conversation. And later, lying in my own bed, I replayed her words over and over. "She sleeps, we don't have to." Like maybe she hadn't been talking about conversation at all. It had been a week since that night. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that people say strange things when they're tired, that she probably didn't even remember. But when Mara texted me, "The faucet's leaking again. Think you could take a look?" I said yes before finishing the message. Her apartment felt different in daylight. The curtains were half open, letting thin bars of sun slice across the floor. It smelled like detergent and something faintly floral. She moved around quietly, barefoot again, her hair pulled up in a loose knot that made her look softer somehow. "Sorry to make you come all this way," she said, handing me a towel. "It's just been one of those weeks." She said it lightly, but her eyes gave her away, faint shadows beneath them, that distant focus of someone whose mind was elsewhere. I wanted to ask what kind of week, but she already turned toward the sink, pretending to tidy. I crouched beneath the counter, tools clinking softly. Water dripped in a rhythm I could feel more than hear. Every now and then, she'd hover nearby, offering to help but never actually touching anything. "So," she said after a while, voice low. You always this quiet? Or just when you're fixing things? I smiled to myself. I talk more when I'm sure I won't say something stupid. She laughed. The sound startled her, I think. It was small and real, like something she hadn't done in a while. I glanced up just in time to see her brush a thumb across her lower lip, like she'd caught herself slipping. Careful, she said softly, nodding to the wrench in my hand. You'll over-tighten it. There was a pause, too long for just plumbing advice. When I stood, she was close again. Close enough that I could see the tiny scar above her eyebrow, the faint freckle near her collarbone. Her robe sleeve slipped a little as she reached for the faucet handle, and for a second, her fingers trembled. Hey, I said. I wanted to tell her she didn't look fine, that her hands kept tightening around the edge of the counter like she was holding something invisible together. But I didn't. I just stood there, waiting, giving her space she didn't ask for but maybe needed. She finally exhaled, a slow, uneven breath. You shouldn't always say yes when I call, she said, not looking at me. People might get the wrong idea. I swallowed. Do you want them to? That made her look up. Her eyes met mine, steady, cautious, but something inside them flickered. Regret, maybe. Or something that wanted to be regret, but wasn't ready yet. The dripping had stopped. The air didn't move. She smiled faintly. You fixed it, she said. But neither of us were looking at the sink. It rained that night. Not the cinematic kind, just a tired, steady drizzle that made the city hum softer than usual. Mara had asked me to drop off a charger she'd left in my car after work. I could have left it with the doorman, but something about her message, if you're nearby, come up for a minute, felt like a door half open. When she answered, she looked surprised, like she hadn't expected me to actually come. Her hair was damp at the ends, sweater sleeves pulled over her hands. The apartment was dim except for a lamp near the couch, casting slow-moving shadows across the walls. You walked in the rain? She asked. I didn't think it was that far. She smiled, small, tired. You never do. I handed her the charger, but she waved me toward the couch. You're already wet. Sit, before you catch something. I hesitated, but she was already moving toward the kitchen. The faint clink of mugs, the quiet sound of her humming under her breath. Off-key, distracted. I could tell she'd been drinking tea before I arrived. There was another cup waiting when she came back. We talked about nothing. Work. Weather. Her neighbor who played the piano too loud. But the silences between topics carried more weight than the words themselves. Every time she looked down or laughed too quickly, something in her posture betrayed a kind of quiet unrest. Do you ever wish things had turned out differently? She asked suddenly, tracing the rim of her mug with her finger. I blinked. What do you mean? She shrugged, eyes still on the cup. Life. Choices. People you met too early or too late. Her voice cracked just slightly at the end. She caught it fast, looked up, and smiled, the kind that hides. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. A name she didn't want me to see, Daniel. She turned the phone over, face down. Someone you should answer? I asked carefully. Her jaw tightened. No, not tonight. Silence again. The kind that makes the air heavier. She leaned back, exhaling through her nose, eyes distant. It's strange, isn't it? How people can know everything about you once, then become complete strangers. I nodded, though she wasn't really asking. Her hand brushed against mine on the couch. Light, accidental, but neither of us moved. The rain deepened outside, tapping against the glass like it was urging something to happen. I wanted to reach out, to ask what she meant, to tell her I hadn't stopped thinking about that first night. But I didn't. I couldn't tell if the warmth between us was invitation or warning. She looked at me then, really looked. You shouldn't stay too long, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, but neither of us moved. The phone buzzed again. Her eyes flicked toward it, then back to me. For a heartbeat, the world went still. Her lips parted like she was about to say something, then closed again. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far off, and the light flickered. I stood up first. You're right. I should go. She didn't stop me, but her gaze followed, lingering like a touch she didn't give. When the door clicked shut behind me, I could still feel her hand, warm, hesitant, unfinished. It was late again, always late when it came to her. The kind of hour where conversation sounds softer, where truth slips out easier than it should. I hadn't meant to see her that night. I was just walking home when I saw her sitting alone outside the small cafe near her building, a half-empty cup beside her, hair falling loose from its usual knot. The streetlight behind her flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay or go. She looked up before I could turn away. "You," she said, with a faint smile. "You look like someone who doesn't know when to stop showing up." I sat down across from her, rain misting the air between us. "You look like someone who doesn't really want to be alone." Her eyes softened, then hardened again, a quick, invisible shift. "That's not fair," she said. "I didn't mean it to be." We fell quiet. Cars passed now and then, their lights sweeping across our table. I watched her thumbs circle the rim of her cup, slow and absent, like she was drawing time itself into smaller and smaller loops. "Mara," I said finally, "what are we doing?" She didn't answer right away. Her gaze drifted past me, to the window, to the reflection of two people who had no business looking like they belonged there. "Nothing," she said. "We're doing nothing. You help me fix things, I make you tea, and we talk about nothing. Then why does it feel like something?" She inhaled, slow and shaky. "Because you're young and kind," and she stopped. "Because I forgot what it's like to be seen without someone expecting something back." The rain picked up, soft but steady. I could hear her swallow before she spoke again. "You remind me of who I was before I learned to be careful." That line sat between us, heavy and beautiful and wrong. I didn't know what to do with it. "You don't have to be careful with me," I said quietly. She looked at me then, eyes glistening but steady. "That's exactly why I should be." Her voice trembled at the edges. I'd never seen her like that. Not composed, not measured, just human. Tired, breaking a little. "I didn't plan this," she said, fingers tightening around the cup. "Whatever this is, you're supposed to come, fix a leak, make conversation, and leave. That's it." "And yet," I said. "And yet," she echoed, whispering it like it hurt. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed, alive with all the things neither of us could say. The sound of rain filled the gaps between breaths, between glances that lingered too long to be friendly. Finally, she pushed the cup away and stood. "You should go before we start meaning things we can't take back." I stood too, searching her face for some kind of permission to stay. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Good night, Mara," I said. Her voice was barely audible when it came, cracked, honest. It stopped being just good night a while ago. She didn't call for weeks. No late-night texts about broken shelves or leaky faucets. No quiet invitations disguised as errands. Just silence, deliberate, maybe necessary. I told myself it was fine. That distance was what we both needed. But every time I passed her street, I slowed down without meaning to. Then one evening, she called. No preamble. "Just, can you come by?" Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. When she opened the door, she looked different. Not worse, not better, just stripped of the quiet composure she usually wore like armor. Her hair was down, her eyes tired in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep. "Sorry," she said softly. "I shouldn't have called. I didn't want to be alone tonight." I nodded, stepping inside. There were boxes stacked near the hallway. Old ones, the kind with tape yellowed from time. A faint scent of dust hung in the air. "I was cleaning out the closet," she said, half smiling. "Found things I should have thrown out years ago." She picked up a small photo frame from the table. A younger version of her smiled from behind the glass, arm around a man I didn't know. He looked kind, the sort of kindness that hurts to remember. "Your husband?" I asked quietly. Her lips parted, then pressed together. She said. "He died 8 years ago. Heart attack. He was 38. The words landed like a slow collapse. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. She looked down at the photo again, fingers brushing the edge of the frame. "I thought I'd stopped missing him," she whispered. "But some nights, I still wake up expecting to hear him breathing next to me. I could feel something tighten in my chest. You never told me." She gave a faint, self-conscious laugh. "It's not exactly something you bring up between tea and small talk." Silence again. Rain outside. Always rain with her, like the weather understood better than we did. "You remind me of him sometimes," she said suddenly. Not the way you look, the way you listen, the way you wait before answering. I didn't know if that was a comfort or a curse. Her eyes flicked to mine, unreadable. Maybe that's why I pushed you away. You made me remember something I'd tried to forget. I took a breath. And what if remembering isn't the same as replacing? She looked startled, like the thought hadn't occurred to her. Then her expression softened, and for a brief second, the air between us shifted. Lighter, sadder, something unnamed and fragile. She reached out then, fingers hovering just shy of my arm. Close enough for warmth, not enough for touch. You're kind, she said. That's dangerous. I almost asked why, but her eyes said enough. The photo frame trembled in her hand. She set it down gently, like it could break again. When I left, she didn't walk me to the door. But as it clicked shut behind me, I heard her whisper, maybe to herself, maybe to me. Some people come back as reminders, not second chances. It was the kind of night that felt borrowed. Too still, too tender to belong to anyone. Weeks had passed since that confession, since the photo, since her words about being a reminder. I hadn't seen her since. I tried to move on, to focus on things that didn't have her name in them. But grief, even borrowed grief, lingers. Then, one evening, she showed up outside the repair shop where I worked. She stood by the door, arms folded, hair windswept, eyes carrying the apology she couldn't say yet. You're hard to find when I'm ready to talk, she said. I didn't want to make it harder, I replied. She nodded, hesitating. Can we walk? The streets were quiet, slick from earlier rain. Streetlights caught the glimmer of puddles, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. I matched her pace, slower than usual, as if she were measuring every step before taking it. I kept thinking about what you said, she began finally. That remembering isn't the same as replacing. Her voice was steadier than before, but it carried something raw beneath it. I think I was afraid of being happy again. Afraid that if I let someone close, it would mean I'd stopped loving what I lost. I looked at her, and she met my gaze without flinching this time. I get that, I said. Sometimes we punish ourselves for healing. She smiled faintly, eyes glistening. You shouldn't be this wise at your age. It's unsettling. I'm not wise, I said. Just learning you. That made her stop. For a heartbeat, the world went soundless. Just our breath, visible in the cool air. She stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of her body cutting through the chill. I can't promise you anything, she said, voice barely a whisper. I'm still figuring out how to exist without guilt. I'm not asking for promises, I said. Just honesty. She looked at me like she wanted to memorize the moment, the rain smell, the dim light, the steadiness of it. Then she reached out, slowly, and touched my sleeve, fingers trailing down until they found my hand. It wasn't a bold touch. It was quiet, trembling, but it held every word we hadn't said. We stood like that, hand in hand, on an empty street that suddenly felt like the center of everything. No music, no declaration, just the faint hum of the city and the shared silence of two people finally not pretending anymore. After a long time, she exhaled and said, "This doesn't have to be a story, you know." I know, I said. It already is. She leaned in, just enough for her forehead to rest against mine. The warmth of her breath met mine in the cold air, steady, human, fragile. And for the first time, there was no confusion, no tension, no waiting for something to happen. It already had. We didn't say goodbye when she left. We didn't have to. Some silences are endings. Some are peace. This was both. It's strange how quiet endings can be. Not the kind you notice. Not slammed doors or final words. Just a soft tapering off, like a song that fades before you realize it's over. Months have passed since that night. We still talk, sometimes. Messages about small things, a recipe she tried, a book she thinks I'd like, a photo of the sky that looked too much like that night we walked in the rain. But something has changed. Not gone, just steadied. Whatever we were caught in, it doesn't ache anymore. It breathes. I see her differently now. Not as someone I wanted to reach for, but as someone who taught me what reaching means. There's this moment I keep replaying. Not from the night she held my hand, but from the morning after. I remember waking up to sunlight spilling through the curtains and realizing that love, real love, doesn't always demand possession. Sometimes it's just the quiet recognition that someone helped you find a piece of yourself you didn't know was missing. Mara did that, without trying to. She once said I reminded her of the man she lost. Maybe that's true, but what she'll never fully know is how she reminded me of what it means to feel, to be seen without performance, to be wanted without expectation. I learned that love can live in the spaces between words, in the pauses that scare us, in the decisions to stay just close enough to matter, but far enough not to break. She told me once that people come back as reminders, not second chances. I think she was right, except sometimes a reminder can still change you. These days, when I pass her building, I don't slow down. I don't look for her shadow in the window or listen for her voice in the sound of rain. But sometimes, without thinking, I still find myself walking slower, not because I miss her, but because some part of me wants to honor what we had by not rushing past it. We were never a love story. We were a quiet intersection, two people who met at the wrong time, but still managed to leave each other better. And maybe that's what love really is. Not permanence, not perfection, just presence. The way someone's laughter lingers after they're gone. The way a voice stays in your head when silence returns. The way the air still feels charged when you remember a touch that never asked for more. Mara taught me that not every connection has to last to be real. Some just need to happen. Once, gently, enough to remind you you're still capable of feeling deeply, honestly, humanly. And if you've ever met someone who left you a little changed, someone who didn't stay but still mattered, you'll understand what I mean. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?